when I was only 14, and you won't believe who the father was. So, me and my best friend Emily had been friends ever since 3rd grade. But then when we got to middle school, she started to get jealous of me because a lot of boys in our grade thought I was prettier than her and always asked me out instead of her. Things became quite heated between us, and it seemed like she didn't want to hang out anymore. I thought maybe she just needed some space, so I left her alone. Soon after that, she got a boyfriend. And then she thought she was better than me. She started gossiping about me, calling me a slut behind my back. I didn't know what to do. I was so upset. One day I came back from the bathroom to find her throwing my stuff on the floor. I couldn't believe it. I was so mad. But luckily my friend was with me and she started picking my stuff up. Her and her friends just stood there laughing at us. It was horrible. I'm not usually the petty type, but this really affected me. For days afterwards, I couldn't stop thinking about it, and that's when I came up with a plan. I started flirting with her boyfriend, and to my complete surprise, he started flirting back. I then invited him to come hang out with me at the local theme park, and he said yes. Emily had noticed we were hanging out, and it made her so angry. But I didn't care. It was revenge time. We still went to the theme park, and when we were on this huge roller coaster, he reached out and grabbed my hand. And that's the moment I started developing feelings for him. When he walked me home afterwards, he asked me if I wanted to go out with him. I was so happy. My plan was working. That's what Emily gets for bullying me and messing with my stuff. I said yes to him, and he said he'd break up with Emily straight away. The next day, when I got to school, I saw Emily crying in the hall, and I won't lie, I did feel kind of bad for her. He must have broken up with her. I went to ask him about it, and he said yes. He'd texted her the night before, and then we both just stood this awkward silence hanging over us. I didn't know what to say, but then he just leaned towards me and planted a kiss on my lips. I felt like I was floating, and I instantly forgot about Emily. Later that day when I was heading to science class, Emily came up to me and started shouting that it was all my fault. She said I always had to get my way, and why couldn't I just let her have this one thing? We argued back and forth, and I told her she had this coming and that she shouldn't have messed with my stuff like that. Afterwards, I went home feeling guilty. Had I done the right thing? But then, the next day, people were talking about how Emily had slept with my twin brother. I felt sick to my stomach. When had this happened and why? I confronted my brother about it later that day, and he said it had just been a one-time thing. I went over to my boyfriend's house and told him about it, and he comforted me and then started kissing me. It felt nice, but suddenly he tried to take my pants off, and I told him to stop, but he wouldn't. He didn't listen to me and kept going. I was so upset and broke up with him right after. Then when I got home, I was terrified I might be pregnant. I could barely sleep, so the next day I told my friend what had happened, and she said we should wait to see if my period came, and if it didn't, we'd go buy a test. Well, let me tell you, waiting for my period to come was torture. After 2 weeks, I couldn't wait any longer, so we went and bought a test. I bought 2 just in case. I was shaking so much when I waited for the results. There was a clear line and then a very faint line. I didn't know what that meant, so I took another one. And then all my worst nightmares came true. It was positive. I freaked out. What would I do? The next day at school, I avoided Emily and my ex-boyfriend like the plague. And then something amazing happened. 2 weeks after that had happened, my dad got a new job and we moved to a new city. I started at a new school and I was still waiting for the right moment to tell my mom what had happened. But it never came. I started wearing loose clothes and for 9 months, I managed to hide it. My dad was always working and so was my mom, so they barely noticed. And as for my twin brother, well, he was always out with his friends and barely paid me any attention. I didn't even go to the doctor because I was so scared. What if my baby wasn't healthy? But it was too late for that because one night I woke up around midnight and I was having contractions. I knew that meant the time had come, so I packed a bag and snuck out of the house. I walked to my friend's house crying in pain and she ordered a cab for us to go to the hospital. The nurse on duty was shocked when she found out I was pregnant. She said they had no records of me on file and that I'd never even come in for an appointment before, but there was no time for any of that. They rushed me to the delivery room and said I was already 9 centimeters dilated. It was now or never. My friend called my mom and told her, and before I knew it, I was 10 centimeters dilated. It was time to start pushing, but I didn't want to do it without my mom by my side. I waited, and when I didn't think I could wait any longer, my mom appeared. My mom didn't even have time to be angry with me because suddenly my baby was born, and from the moment that I held her, I was completely in love with her. A month later, I went back to my old city to tell the dad. When I got to the school, people told me he was dating Emily again, but I didn't care. I told him he was a father now, and he said he didn't want anything to do with us. Well, it's his loss. He's the one missing out. So yeah, that's my story. I'm a teen mom, and even though it's not the most romantic tale, I love my little girl more than anything. I'm now back at school, and honestly, I wish I'd just asked my parents for help earlier. They would have supported me throughout it all. What do you think? Should I be bothered that the dad wants nothing to do with our baby? I guess